Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a real head-scratcher, a paradox right at the heart of one of the world's priciest property markets.
So here's the mystery we're trying to solve. You've got this apartment, right? It's 50 years old, and its lease is literally ticking down to zero. So how on earth does it sell for over $1 million? It's like one part of the market is at war with the other. And look, this isn't just a few weird one-off sales. We're talking about a number that has absolutely exploded, an all-time high this year alone. To really get our heads around how we got here, you have to see just how big this thing has become. All right, so to figure this out, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. First, the 99-year countdown. Then, how the market is defying gravity. After that, we'll look at the ticking financing clock, the sure-win mindset that's driving all this, and finally, the inevitable endgame. Okay, first things first. We have to understand the basic rule of the game here. The one thing that should, theoretically, be dragging all these prices back down to earth. So every single one of these public housing flats has a 99-year lease. This is key. It's not like you own it forever. Think of it more like a long-term rental from the state. And when that 99-year clock runs out, the value of the flat hits zero. Poof, gone. And the ownership goes right back to the state, no compensation. This whole thing is by design, so the land can be recycled for the next generation. Now, this table is fascinating. It shows us what's supposed to happen. It's the theory, a model called Ballas curve. It's basically financial gravity in action, showing how a flat's value should drop over time. And here's the really important bit. It doesn't just fall in a straight line. Nope. It starts off slow, but then, as you get closer to the end of the lease, the value drop just accelerates like crazy. So, okay, that's the theory. That's what should be happening. But what's going on in the real world? Well, this is where it starts to get weird. And here's where reality just throws theory out the window. Just look at this breakdown. A massive chunk of these million-dollar flats are old. I mean, almost a quarter of them have less than 70 years left. That's completely ignoring the financial gravity that's supposed to be pulling them down. And if you want to see just how wild this gets, look at these real-world examples. A place in Tiong Bahru, with only about 49 years left on the lease, sold for $1.5 million. I mean, come on. Each of these is basically a person making an enormous financial bet that they can beat the clock. So, you gotta ask, what is holding these prices up? Well, it boils down to what some people call the holy trinity of real estate value. First, location. These older flats are often in amazing, mature areas with great transport and schools. Second, size. Let's be honest, they just don't build them like they used to. These older flats are often way bigger. And third, all the amenities are already there. The shops, the parks, the community vibes, and people are definitely willing to pay a huge premium for that package. Okay, the other big reason? It's basically the hope of winning the lottery. It's called SERS. The dream is that the government will pick your old block for redevelopment. If you hit this jackpot, you get paid market value for your old place, and you get a spot in a brand new, subsidized flat with a fresh 99-year lease. Now, the reality, it's super, super rare. Like, it's only ever happened to about 5% of all flats. But that tiny sliver of hope, it's powerful enough to drive up prices. But here's the thing, market hype isn't the whole story. There's another side to this coin. While sentiment is pushing prices up, there are some very real, very hard financial rules that create huge problems down the road. Problems that a lot of people might be overlooking. And this is maybe the most important point of all. The biggest risk if you buy one of these old flats isn't that the market will crash tomorrow. No, the real danger is that when you want to sell it in, say, 10 or 20 years, the number of people who can actually get a loan to buy it from you has shrunk to almost nothing. This table shows you exactly why that happens. It's all about financing. As the lease on a flat gets shorter, the rules for buying it get tighter and tighter. You can use less of your retirement savings. The loan you can get from a bank gets shorter. And eventually, once the lease gets too short, getting a loan becomes basically impossible. These aren't just gentle slopes, they're financing cliffs. You just fall right off. Let's just walk through an example to see how this works. Say you're 30-year-old and you buy a flat with 65 years of lease left. No problem, you can get a full loan. Great, but now let's fast forward 20 years. You want to sell. Your flat now only has 45 years of lease left. So that new 30-year-old buyer who wants your place, they can't get a full loan anymore. Just like that, your pool of potential buyers has disappeared.
So, with all these risks, why on earth are people still paying $1 million for these flats? To get that, we need to step away from the numbers for a second and look at the psychology here, something that's been built up over decades.
You see, the story of the HDB flat has changed over time. Back in the 60s, it was all about giving people a roof over their heads, a stake in a new country. It was about shelter. But then in the 90s, the story changed. It became about asset enhancement. Your flat wasn't just a home, it was your key to wealth, your retirement plan. And now, in the 2020s, we're seeing this massive clash between that asset dream and the cold, hard reality of a 99-year lease.
And that promise of asset enhancement, it was talked about for decades. It created this incredibly powerful nationwide belief that buying a public flat was a sure-win ticket. It's a mindset that's so deep-seated that the very idea that this asset could, actually go down in value is really, really hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around.
All right, so where does all of this lead? What's the end game in this massive, high-stakes game of property chicken?
When you boil it all down, the paradox is really a battle between two different kinds of value. On one side, you have fundamental value. That's tied to the lease, and it is mathematically guaranteed to fall to zero. On the other side, you have paper value. That's what people are willing to pay today, and it's propped up by location, size, and a whole lot of hope. For now, paper value is winning the fight, but that clock on the fundamental value, it never, ever stops ticking.
And if you look at the government's future plans, you can see that a reality check is already on its way. The old SARE scheme, that was the lottery win. The new scheme, VRS, is being framed very differently. It's a soft landing. It's an exit strategy, sure, but the official line is that the compensation will be much less generous. The goal isn't creating windfalls anymore. It's about managing a slow, orderly decline in value.
Which brings us to the ultimate question this whole situation forces us to ask, not just as a market, but as a society. What is a home really for? Is it supposed to be a nest egg, something that guarantees your financial future? Or is it just a nest, a place to live, to build a family, a community, but one whose financial value has a built-in expiration date? And that right there is the true $1 million question for the future.